Though without Chelsea and Rick, the boat ride away from the resort in the White Lotus Season 3 finale is quite similar to their sail-in, but with some profound new changes for the Ratliff siblings. Shockingly, all 5 members of the Ratliff family make it out of the White Lotus Season 3's ending alive, though there were some close calls. Tim originally planned to fatally poison himself, Victoria, Piper, and Saxon after they expressed being unable to live without their wealth, though he spared Lachlan. After Tim backed out last minute, Lachlan accidentally drank some and nearly died, only to miraculously survive. Ultimately, each of the Ratliff siblings left Thailand with a spiritual awakening and a greater sense of self-awareness, whether good or bad. Saxon became more introspective and spiritually in tune after spending time with Chelsea. Piper realized she couldn't live without the comforts of their wealthy life, and Lachlan explored sex while also seeing God in his near-death experience. While the direction and layout of the Ratliff siblings' final boat scene mirrors the design of their opening boat scene, the White Lotus Season 3 characters' internal changes are still subtly reflected in their new dispositions and appearances. The Ratliff siblings repeat their "see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil" symbolism from the premiere. Saxon, Piper and Lachlan have transformed from their original dynamic. As the family sails away from the White Lotus Thailand resort, the Ratliff siblings form the reverse seating order from their first boat ride, which symbolized the "see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil" proverb. In the White Lotus Season 3 premiere, they sat on the bench with Saxon on the left, Piper in the middle, and Lachlan on the right, which paralleled their birth order and power hierarchy. In that episode, Saxon wearing glasses reflected "see no evil," Piper wearing her headphones symbolized "hear no evil," and Lachlan covering his mouth with a drink reflected "speak no evil." That first order was representative of their initial outlooks on life, internal conflicts, personalities, and power dynamics. Saxon was closed off from seeing deeper aspects of life, and would actively avoid looking at and acknowledging his faults. Meanwhile, Piper would drown out her family's world and actively reject it by trying to listen to and learn about different ways of life on her own. On the other hand, Lachlan was largely voiceless before coming to Thailand, feeling like everything was said for him by his parents and siblings, or being afraid to speak when caught in the middle of them. By the White Lotus Season 3's ending, they're not the same kids that they were upon arrival. This time, Lachlan is on the left, Piper is still in the middle, and Saxon is on the right, reflecting a shift in their familial power dynamics. Lachlan is now the one wearing sunglasses, reflecting him now being more closed off from seeing the truth. Piper is still in the middle, but now listens to the world around her rather than trying to hear answers elsewhere. Saxon now reads Chelsea's book with his glasses off, reflecting his new openness and insight. How the Ratliff siblings' final boat scene reflects their stories in Thailand. Lachlan, Piper and Saxon have new outlooks on life. Each of the Ratliff siblings experienced some profound change that they'll carry with them after returning home, and none of it is what they expected to happen when arriving in Thailand. For Saxon, he had no intention of going through a journey of self-discovery and change in Thailand. He wanted to sit by the pool, flirt with girls, and party. However, that couldn't continue after Saxon and Lachlan's incestuous three-way in the White Lotus Season 3, Episode 6. For the first time, Saxon had to truly look at himself and assess how he got to this point with his brother. Saxon had been trying to train Lachlan to be more of a man, and take what he wanted through sex, money, and confidence, and it wasn't until Lachlan performed a sex act on Saxon that he finally listened to him. Saxon was repulsed and sickened, but he couldn't understand that moment or what had led him there until he spoke with Chelsea. After Chelsea called Saxon soulless, reflecting his feelings about himself following his experience with Lachlan, Saxon had to finally open his eyes to the emptiness of his priorities and his inability to meaningfully connect with himself and others. If Saxon could open his eyes to that, then he could redeem himself, find purpose and meaning in his life beyond his superficial wealth and power, and become a better person. Saxon, meditating with Chelsea, further reiterated that exploring his spirituality and soul could change his life. But it wasn't until he saw Chelsea and Rick lovingly embracing on the beach in the finale that he realized this was the path to a greater existence. As such, when Saxon has his glasses off while reading his book on the boat, he's taking what he learned from Chelsea and applying it. Piper's changes in the White Lotus Season 3's ending were arguably less drastic than those of her brothers, but they still guide her into a new outlook on life upon returning home. When Piper came to Thailand, she was searching for a way of life different from the one she grew up in, believing their priorities were vapid and without depth. She was arguably the polar opposite of where Saxon was at, and believed that moving to Thailand would give her more purpose, separate from her family. Ultimately, however, Piper learned to accept herself as someone who needed these comforts, allowing her to embrace the life and world she was given without feeling guilty. She's less afraid of making a life for herself in that world, and is now much more sure of herself and confident in her desires than she was beforehand. According to IndieWire, Mike White originally included a scene in which Piper and Zion were going to sleep together, which would have explained more about her new glow, self-assurance, and self-enlightenment on the boat. Lachlan was in a state that fell in the middle of Saxon and Piper's dispositions back in the White Lotus Season 3, Episode 1. He was completely lost. Lachlan was unsure of where he wanted to go to college, unsure of his sexuality and relationship to sex, unsure of the type of person he wanted to be, and unsure of what belief system to follow. He knew he was a people pleaser, and that was about it. However, after all the partying and sex in the White Lotus Season 3, Episode 5, Lachlan was a new person. For perhaps the first time in his life, Logan felt the power that Saxon always had after he performed a sex act on him in their drug-induced states. After that moment, Lachlan had the power in their relationship, and it turned Saxon into the lost brother. However, Lachlan was still learning more about himself despite his newfound power and sexual experience, even trying to run away from his darkness by asking to stay in Thailand with Piper. That confusion was further progressed by Lachlan's near-death experience, having a spiritual moment of seeing God when he nearly died from ingesting poison.